Back in the day, the UK was the king of the Industrial Revolution, leading the charge with big ideas and strong economic muscles. However, the country's past mistakes are now hitting Brits' wallets hard. In 2024, the UK finds itself in a tight corner. Its economy and climate change are now locked in a dance, each step affecting the other. It's a tough spot, like being at the end of a maze with no clear way out. Experts predict that by 2100, climate change could cut a shocking 7.4% off the UK's GDP. The shift to renewable energy isn't easy. It's full of hard choices and often marked by hypocrisy, reflecting a nation struggling to align its economic interests with the health of the planet. They're desperately trying to revive an economy that's been plummeting for 16 years. Central to this economic downturn is the manufacturing sector, once the cornerstone of Britain's industrial strength. The decline here has been shocking, from ruling 30% of the GDP in the 1970s to just 10% today. Far from a simple dip, this is a catastrophic economic collapse, the worst among all the G7 countries. Now, their crisis is just not about numbers. It's about the people's lives, their jobs, and their future. So what happens when these human realities are ignored in the economic equation? This is how climate change is destroying the UK's economy. Let's go back to the 18th century, when physical labor made up the fabric of British society. It was a world where every item had the mark of human hands, a time of toil and tradition. But then, as if a storm of innovation hit, the Industrial Revolution began to turn its gears. This era was a game changer, a pivotal moment that would forever alter the course of history. Enter the revolutionary machines, the spinning jenny, and the power loom. These inventions propelled Britain to the forefront of the textile industry, turning a nation of handcrafters into a powerhouse of industrial production. It was a crucial transformation, with factories rising where once there were only workshops. Then, in 1856, Henry Bessemer introduced a process that revolutionized steelmaking. This innovation was a cornerstone in building the modern world, laying down tracks for railways and giving rise to towering structures. Britain's contribution set the blueprint for modern industry. They led the way in establishing factory systems, manufacturing standards, labor practices, teaching the world to build more efficiently and innovatively. Manufacturing became the heartbeat of Britain's economy, contributing over 30% to its GDP. But then, everything came crashing down. Enter new challengers: Germany, Japan, and China. Each brought their strengths to the global stage, reshaping the manufacturing landscape. Germany, known for its quality and precision, began carving a niche in high-end manufacturing. Meanwhile, Japan, rising from the ashes of World War II, adopted a strategy of producing high-quality goods at lower costs, revolutionizing industries like electronics and automobiles. And China? Its meteoric rise in the late 20th and early 21st centuries turned it into a manufacturing giant, leveraging its vast labor pool and evolving from producing low-quality goods to sophisticated technology-driven products. By the 2010s, the once booming manufacturing sector, which accounted for over 30% of the UK's GDP, had shrunk dramatically to about 10%. The workforce felt this hit too, with employment in manufacturing dropping from 8 million in the 1960s to just 2.5 million by 2013. This downward trend continued, and by 2022, the sector's decline had accelerated, partly attributed to the government's perceived neglect and the fallout from Brexit. Brexit threw a curveball at the industry, especially in dealings with the EU. Exports and imports took a 15% hit, a major blow considering the EU's role as the UK's top trading partner. This marked a significant shift in the economy, with even high productivity areas like chemicals and electronics facing a downturn, adding to the challenges faced by the manufacturing industry. In 2021 and 22, 22% of the UK population, including 8.1 million working-age adults, 4.2 million children, and 2.1 million pensioners, were in poverty. From 2021, poverty rates increased across these groups. By 2023, it was forecasted that absolute poverty would rise by 300,000, reaching 12 million in 2024, equivalent to an 18% poverty rate, due to decreasing real incomes and inflation adjustments. As their troubles keep piling up, one key factor from the last 6 decades was often overlooked: the country's swift leap into industrialization came with a hidden price tag. The factories, workforce, jobs, coal, and winter fogs, they couldn't remain in the past. They've returned to bite back. The real challenge facing the UK isn't Brexit or the usual suspects. It's climate change. These two words, often overlooked by many, are starting to erode the nation's health and economy. Indeed, fog and cold may seem like relics of the past, but somehow, not just the UK, but the entire world has ended up in a situation where the consequences are becoming far more catastrophic than anyone could imagine. In the past, the Industrial Revolution, fueled by coal, unleashed a wave of air pollution across its cities. The heavy reliance on coal not only devastated the environment, but also led to widespread health issues, especially respiratory diseases. Places like Manchester, at the heart of this industrial spirit, suffered immensely. This era's pursuit of economic growth at the expense of environmental health created a legacy of pollution that continues to haunt Britain, reflecting a past where progress was measured in smokestacks rather than sustainability. But how does climate change affect the economy? Well, according to experts, by 2050, the impact will be sharply felt in everyday life, with food prices expected to skyrocket by 20%. This spike is a clear sign of the stress on global food systems as they grapple with rising temperatures and extreme weather events. The UK workforce isn't immune either. Productivity takes a hit with every degree of rise in temperature. Particularly in London, a 2 degrees Celsius increase could see economic output dip by 0.4% in warmer years due to reduced labor productivity. But the challenge continues beyond there. The UK's infrastructure is at a tipping point. Over the last century, sea levels have risen by 16.5 centimeters, doubling in recent years. Now, this rise poses a significant threat to coastal and urban infrastructure, leading to soaring costs for damage control and future-proofing. A report by the Grantham Institute highlights the long-term financial implications. Climate change could reduce the UK's GDP by up to 7.4% by 2100. The most significant factor in this decline is the disruption to the global economic system. These figures underscore the urgent need for climate policies and adaptive strategies to mitigate these financial risks. Unlike some other countries, in 2008, the United Kingdom implemented the Climate Change Act, a pivotal moment in its environmental policy. This act set an ambitious goal to slash greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050, compared to 1990. It introduced a groundbreaking approach to carbon budgets, establishing legally binding emission limits for consecutive 5-year periods. By 2017, UK emissions were recorded at 460 million tons, underscoring the enormity of the task. They also ramped up the game in 2019, setting up an ambitious target of achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Considering the major economic shifts needed to transition to a green economy, this was a huge deal. Against all odds, they managed to surpass its carbon budgets and cut greenhouse gas emissions by 26% from 2010 to 2019. The Climate Change Act has made mitigation efforts in areas like transport and energy increasingly cost-effective, even leading to savings. Now, these costs are on a downward trend and are expected to keep falling. The real win, however, lies in the broader benefits of climate policies. These include improved health due to less air pollution, and overall welfare gains equivalent to 3.3% of GDP. Also, investing in green industries isn't just good for the planet, it's economically rewarding too, with an anticipated 2.8% boost to GDP. This commitment to sustainability is evident in the growth of the green sector, which saw an increase of 526,000 full-time jobs in 2020, plus an extra 40,000 by 2021, marking a significant stride in environmental and economic transformation. Britain, previously celebrated as an environmental champion, has won global admiration with its commitment to a greener future. But here's the reality check. The situation remains critical despite these efforts. In recent years, the UK experienced some of its warmest periods, notably in 2020 and 2022, and a scorching July day in 2023, which marked the hottest day ever recorded in the country. The average land temperature climbed by approximately 1.2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times, leading to more frequent and severe heat waves. But why are the numbers continually rising instead of falling? Although previously a leader in the fight against climate change, The UK has altered its approach, now prioritizing investment in fossil fuels, the primary contributor to global warming. This government's decision is a perplexing situation where logical thinking appears to have been overshadowed by the pursuit of profit. Their plan to drill in the North Sea revealed a striking hypocrisy that deeply shook public trust and beliefs. It was a decision that caught everyone by surprise, leaving many questioning, was it all a lie? Prime Minister Rishi Sunak gave the green light to implement the Offshore Petroleum Licensing Bill, which aims to boost fossil fuel production for decades to come. But why is this causing so much controversy? According to experts, with this new law, there will only be a small increase in the amount of gas the UK gets from the North Sea. Most of the gas will still come from places already being used. Now here's where it gets more tricky. These new fields may require as much CO2 annually as 14 million automobiles worth of emissions, or roughly what Denmark produces annually. If the UK goes ahead with additional licenses they're considering, the CO2 emissions could soar, multiplying by more than 8 times. This move is raising eyebrows across Britain, and many protesters are pointing out that the government seems overly focused on fossil fuels and not enough on the renewable energy front. Their call for action is clear. More wind farms, heat pumps, and electric cars could make a real dent in reducing reliance on fossil fuels. Tensions escalated when Chris Skidmore, a prominent figure in the government's energy sector, chose to resign. His departure was a clear sign of his strong opposition to the government's increasing emphasis on oil and gas, underscoring a significant conflict with the UK's climate change commitments. This situation creates a paradox for the country by using its already strained economy to fund projects aiming for a cleaner environment and hoping for clean energy in the future. Yet at the same time, they continue to invest in oil and gas, which could harm the environment and counteract these efforts. Brits are actively voicing their concerns about these decisions, with many protesting against decisions they perceive as prioritizing profits over the environment. Regardless of their stance on government policies, it's clear that a significant portion, about 2/3 of the British population, genuinely cares about climate issues. Around 77% view climate change as a major threat, with 25% believing it's already beyond control, showing a widespread sense of urgency. The perception of climate change varies with age. Older generations may prioritize economic growth due to their upbringing, while younger people call for immediate action. Some individuals acknowledge the problem, but believe it's too late to take action and that they won't witness the world's end in their lifetime, leading to apathy. In contrast, others simply don't believe in climate change. However, as environmental impacts become more evident with extreme summers and catastrophic events, even those skeptical are starting to take notice. As we navigate these pivotal choices for our planet, remember, you're part of this global story. For the latest economic insights that impact both our wallets and our world, make sure to subscribe. Want to keep riding the wave of change with us? Simply hit that subscribe button. Together, we're not just watching the world change, we're part of the change.